Today, I'm going to be speaking about something I came across that I don't remember hearing about. And the more I researched, the more interesting it became. So I hope you find it just as interesting. Mario Cuomo served 3 terms as governor of New York from 1983 to 1984. As many of you know, his son Andrew also held the same position up until 2021. Mario Cuomo's parents both immigrated to the United States from Salerno, Italy. Although an Italian American, Cuomo had always taken a strong vocal stance against the mafia and the stereotyping of Italians. So much so that he even personally boycotted watching the movie The Godfather, a position he took to squash the stereotype that all Italians were part of Cosa Nostra or connected to it in some way. In fact, in 1972, when The Godfather was first released, he received an invitation for a private viewing from then Mayor John Lindsay, but that invitation was sent back to sender. During the 1970s, there were rumors floating around the media that Cuomo had mob skeletons in his family's closet. Numerous reporters placed calls to the head of the Brooklyn U.S. Attorney's Organized Crime Task Force, Edwick McDonald. There were reports that Cuomo met with a high-ranking member of the Colombo family. It turns out the rumors took shape from a leaked FBI report. Agents who'd been surveilling Sonny Francis followed him to a wedding, one that Cuomo was also attending. At some point, Francis and Cuomo were spotted shaking hands, so that generated the rumor. There were also unconfirmed reports that Michael Francis donated $30,000 during Cuomo's 1983 campaign. After Paul Castellano was killed in December 1985, Cuomo urged reporters not to use the word mafia while reporting the crime. He stated, "The Godfather always mentions ethnicity. Mafia was an Italian word, and every time you say it, you suggest to people that organized crime is Italian. It's an ugly stereotype." Meanwhile, Cuomo criticized the Catholic Church for refusing to give Castellano a Catholic burial. He went on to say, "You tell me the Mafia is an organization, I tell you it's a lot of baloney." Former FBI agent Joe Pistone, who used the undercover name Donnie Brasco to infiltrate the Bonanno crime family, took offense to Cuomo denying that there's a mafia. A lot of baloney? While we were out there working hard and risking our lives to prove that the mafia was a criminal organization, Mario Cuomo was campaigning for the press to stop reporting that the mafia even existed. Cuomo once complained that a Republican opponent stated that Cuomo made his bones with a Democratic organization of Queens County. He went on to say, "Made his bones, if you look at the dictionary of slang, is an expression used by so-called mafia people to indicate that you've been accepted as one of the elite in the mafia by having committed a murder. What it suggests to me is an attempt to create a kind of an image of an association with organized criminals." Speaking of association, Cuomo was very close friends with William Fugazi, an entrepreneur. During a 1997 trial, former Lucchese acting boss Al Diaco testified that Fugazi had close ties to Cingigante and was considered a Genovese associate. Cuomo, who despised stereotyping, not only received it from his political opponents, but from the media as well. And he became a victim of stereotyping when he became a no-show at the 1992 presidential elections. He explained, "There were 2 justifications, that I was linked to the mafia or that I had cancer. No one said I had a 28-year-old blonde lover." Of course, he was joking, as he was happily married. He met his future wife, Matilda Raffa, in 1951 at St. John's University in Queens, and they were married by June of 1954. Cuomo's father-in-law, Carmelo Raffa, owned several buildings and vacant lots throughout Brooklyn. On May 22, 1984, Raffa, who at the time was 78 years old, drove to one of his properties on 804 Stanley Avenue in East New York, Brooklyn at 11:30 a.m. Supposedly, he had the property on the market and was meeting a potential buyer. He entered the building, and a short time later, neighbors watched as he exited the building, bleeding and severely beaten. Raffa was rushed to Baptist Medical Center and eventually airlifted to NYU Medical Center. Detectives from the 75th Precinct questioned him about the assault, but he gave them conflicting accounts about what took place. For instance, he described his assailants as white, Hispanic, and black. Originally, he claimed it was just one guy, but made a later statement that there was 2. At the time, there was speculation that Raffa was the victim of a mob beating involving arson. There were also unconfirmed reports that Cuomo covered up the investigation. On February 18, 1992, at the New Hampshire primary, Mario Cuomo announced that he would not be running for presidency. Later that year, on November 19, 1992, he took a trip to Italy and landed in Rome. He still had family that lived in Salerno. The last time he visited Italy was after the November 23, 1980 earthquake that killed almost 3,000 people. Back then, he headed the earthquake relief effort. Prior to the trip, it became known to the Sicilian Mafia that Cuomo would visit, and they came up with a plan to kill the New York governor. In May and July of that same year, they killed Italy's top two prosecuting judges, Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino. So they wanted to step up their war against law enforcement, and Cuomo's visit gave them the perfect opportunity. The plan to assassinate Cuomo came to light after Maurizio Avola, a member of the Sicilian Mafia, began cooperating. Avola made his first entry into the Sicilian Mafia at the age of 21, when he was asked to kill a lawyer at the request of Aldo Ercolano on behalf of the Catania boss, Benedetto Santapalo. Avola committed the murder and was inducted into Santapalo's family in 1983, where he answered to Ercolano, who was Santapalo's right-hand man. Santapalo was a close ally to Toto Riina and the Coglianesi. Avola was involved in over 70 murders, some of which he committed alongside Matteo Messina Denaro. Two of those murders were the high-profile assassinations of Falcone and Borsellino. In regard to the Borsellino bombing, he made the following statement: "I am the last person who saw Paolo Borsellino's gaze before giving the signal to make that damned explosion." Avola began cooperating after receiving a life sentence for his role in 43 murders and over 40 robberies. His testimony attributed to the arrest and convictions of over 100 people. According to Avola, after learning of Cuomo's planned visit to Italy, Ercolano told him Cuomo was an excellent target to send a message to the United States. The Sicilian Mafia was aware that the United States provided Italian cooperators with the Witness Protection Program and a safe haven with new identities. Prior to 1991, Italy had no witness protection program and depended on the United States to provide protection for their witnesses. Cuomo, to the Sicilians, symbolized that protection of cooperators who helped put Cosa Nostra bosses in prison. And according to Avola, they wanted to send a clear message. This is what happens to those who stand in the way of the mafia. They learned that Cuomo's trip included a Sicilian stage where he would be visiting Sicily. After finding out Cuomo would visit Messina, they planned the hit to take place in the main square of the city. The attack would involve dozens of men who would be armed with Kalashnikovs and explosives, and they planned to kill Cuomo and his escort in broad daylight. However, the plan was called off days before Cuomo would arrive in Messina. They obviously had Cuomo and his entourage under surveillance and received word that he not only had an extensive security force protecting him, but they were traveling in armored vehicles. Avola was released into the Witness Protection Program in 1996. On January 1st, 2015, Andrew Cuomo was sworn in as the second term of governor of New York. And later that afternoon, Mario Cuomo died as a result of heart failure, not at the hands of the mafia.